Bitcoin's technical setup could be much worse than you think, but it's actually partially to do with the fundamental side as well. You see, we're going to be talking a little bit about GBTC in this YouTube video. If you've been following the news, they are a big reason for why the market has been dropping, and it all totally makes sense. But let's get into the short-term price action first, because to me this is always the most interesting bit to focus on in the video. And what we've seen is Bitcoin bouncing off a low of about 38.5, which is one of the levels we were kind of watching. It's not a level that I had outlined on this chart, but you can see that this was a potential peak of the market going back to November of last year. And we have now started to kind of brush up against this price range here that we were previously using as support. So no surprises from what I'm seeing right now. We've got the 4-hour time frame here, and we're not quite up at that Ichimoku cloud yet, which to me is an indication that the market hasn't actually... See, one of the things that's happened is we've topped out up here at about $49,000, and then from there, it's basically been a straight drop down, right? I mean, we haven't really had any relief. If we look at this wick up to this wick, that's a 4.7% move, and it took 4 days, but it's not really a recovery. You know, if we look at this one up to this one, again, 4.5%, we're not really getting a recovery compared to this, you know, fairly large 21% move. And, you know, to put this in perspective, for us to break even on that drop, we'd have to move up by 27% now. So the market has definitely cut pretty low, and there hasn't really been any kind of meaningful retracement. So to me, you know, what I'm seeing here, what I actually think makes a lot of sense is that the market is now potentially having its first opportunity for a real back test, for a real kind of recovery. And I don't think that recovery is going to be successful, but it's natural as part of any market where no matter which direction you're moving in, you're going to have some relief, right? If you're moving down, you're going to have some relief upwards. And if you're moving up, you're going to have some relief downwards, right? That's super, super typical, right? Sometimes, and these are what we call either price-based corrections, or you get time-based corrections, right? A time-based correction is very simply when the price just trades sideways before continuing on higher. So here is a beautiful time-based correction where we move up, ignoring this wick, we move up, trade sideways, and then bam, we're up again. Again, another time-based correction sideways, and then up again, right? So these kind of corrections come in different shapes, sizes, whatever, but you know, I think we could be looking at potentially one of those more bullish ones right now. And it's really just about kind of, do we lose these local lows that we've set? You know, if we take a look at these really, really intimate lows that we're just at right now, you know, it basically for Bitcoin sits at about 39.5, right? This has kind of been the low for Bitcoin that we haven't really been able to plunge below, you know, just over these last, what was this, like 2 days, 1.5 days. So if Bitcoin is able to kind of fall below, then that's when I think we kind of recontinue the downtrend, especially if we sweep this low. Then, you know, I think we're probably going at least, you know, $1,000 or $2,000 lower than this, you know, but until, as long as we're holding this, to me, this is just kind of bullish consolidation, right? Something that's probably going to start looking a little bit like that, moving toward the upside. And to me, you know, that potentially is going to start pointing toward the next ceiling, which is going to be sitting at about $41,000. Now, I've got a slight problem with this analysis, which is that the market is way too fucking bullish. You know, wherever I look right now, it feels like I just can't escape everybody. Okay, this isn't going to work. I just can't escape everybody kind of talking about really bullish ideas in this market. If we take a very quick look through Twitter, I want to see if there's anything that jumps out immediately as being very obvious. This is a long trade that somebody is flexing by the looks of it on Twitter. So there's a lot of profit, you know, flexing right now. People talking about the long positions that they're in and so on. Not a whole lot right here. Just yeah, some more GBTC stuff that we're going to be talking about. Actually, similar lines to this as well. You know, but on the whole, can't seem to find it right now. But there have been a lot of kind of bullish sentiment style tweets going around in this market recently. So, you know, to me, that's an indication that, you know, people are quite happy and positive about where things are. If we actually go ahead and take a look at the Binance long and short ratio right here, if we look at it on the daily, our retail long short ratio is pretty aggressive to the bull side right here. We've got 67% of accounts going long. That's 2.11 longs for every short. So that's very, very strong right there. but again, indicating that retail money is still actually quite bullish on the market. So that kind of holds me back, and that makes me want to say, well, actually things are pretty bad. They're not actually that bullish at all. But if we do take a look at other metrics like the Fear and Greed Index, which will update in 5.5 hours, it has reset really well. We've come down to a reading of 48 yesterday, and today 52, and of course we're going to update again relatively soon. It's probably going to be right around this beautiful neutral area. So that's really what we want to see. We've done really well in terms of kind of resetting sentiment here, but actual money is still pointing to the upside, and I don't necessarily see that lasting particularly long. The thing about Bitcoin now is that kind of this area is basically one giant block of resistance. If we take a look at this with the VPVR, it couldn't be more clear. We have massive spikes up here that start at about 41.6, end here at about 42.9, but then start again immediately afterwards in the mid 43s up to 44, right? Massive spikes here, that very clearly to me indicate that these are going to be particularly challenging zones for Bitcoin to overcome. If we go ahead and make this indicator a lot more blunt, we can see that this is a major block of resistance, and it is not to be taken as a joke. We are rising right up into it, and this was previously where we consolidated for a really long time. So unless you think that this is a deviation, which I think is definitely possible, I don't think it's probable, but I think it's possible. Then unless you think this is a deviation, this is going to be a really fucking challenging zone for Bitcoin. And I don't think that it's got the most bullish stance going into this particular kind of consolidation zone right now. So I'm not super optimistic about it. One of the other things that has got me kind of not optimistic as well is a look at the GBTC stuff. And I want to talk about this briefly. You've probably already heard, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, partially because it also just doesn't matter, as much as people are making it out to be. But in summary, GBTC, we've all kind of heard it, hopefully, Grayscale Bitcoin. If you haven't heard of it, don't worry, you didn't really miss much. It basically used to be a Bitcoin trust. And once the ETF approval came, it was converted to an ETF. And what was interesting was that GBTC was actually trading at a discount, meaning it was cheaper than Bitcoin for a very long time. And as soon as that ETF as soon as it was converted into an ETF, it basically gave people an opportunity to cash out in Bitcoin, right? So whatever discount existed on GBTC was immediately, matched with the Bitcoin price. So theoretically, you would have made like a 40% profit in a day or whatever the difference was, which is huge. So really what we've got is exactly like fucking precisely 1000% exactly what I was warning you guys about, screaming from the rooftops about on this YouTube channel for weeks, if not months, is that as soon as the institutional money had a chance to be in this game, they would do something to fuck the market. Because institutional players, big guys with their fancy fucking suits and ties and shit like that, they don't buy coins at the top. They don't buy stocks at the top. They don't buy commodities at the top. They are not dumb money. That's why they weren't in crypto to begin with. And they keep their money safe. They grow it incredibly efficiently by doing things like this to the market. So if you've been subscribed to the channel, this will not be news to you. This will be completely unsurprising developments that we're seeing in the market. But if you're like the rest of the fucking half brains in the space, then you're going to be a little bit surprised that people who are already rich, who know how to play the game better than you, have decided to sell an asset that's pulled a 3 times gain from its bottom within a year, right? That might surprise you if you're a bit of a half brain. But if you've been watching this channel for a little bit, if you're turned on to reality, then this kind of thing shouldn't be surprising at all. And the thing is, this can definitely continue. There's a lot of talk about this right now in the space. There's a lot of people speculating about these ideas right now in this space, and we can see very clearly that it has actually impacted the price. Now, we do have some potential upside that I want to discuss with you guys. It starts with this kind of falling wedge pattern that I want to draw for you that looks a little bit like, you know what, I can't draw it properly. Let me just show you the chart that I've already pre-drawn for this. That looks a little bit like this. This also lines up with our 4-hour EMA ribbon, which we'll be speaking about in just a minute, which is a very, very bullish stance for the market. If we get a breakout above this, we could be looking at a nice breakout, but again, to what level? Probably only into a level that we already understand as being resistance, right? So not the best situation for Bitcoin, but it's a bullish pattern and it's short term, so you know, that is still something which I think is worth taking note of. We've actually done something similar to this before. It was back in June of 2023. This is something I was discussing internally with the team because it's actually quite similar to what we're in right now in terms of a position, specifically this bit right here. If we go ahead and look at the market, this right here does look a lot like this right here. So if we're gonna pull something like this off, well, we've already done it in similar circumstances before, and it did lead to a nice, this was when Bitcoin dropped down to 25K, rallied back up to 30, and then later on, it dropped back down to 25, and that was the final drop where everybody was panicking, and I was still telling you guys not to panic because the market didn't actually do anything bad. People like to panic very prematurely. By the way, obviously, like always, when I start to see the market exhibiting those kind of behaviors again, where there's really nothing to be worried about, but people are massively panicking, that's when I'm going to be interested in really kind of opening up the faucet and buying more, really, pouring more dollars back into this market. At the moment, what I'm seeing is kind of the opposite, where there's actually really good reason to be concerned about the market. It doesn't mean that the market has to collapse. But while I think that there's good reason to be concerned, people are not concerned. People are at best neutral, which is evident by the fear and greed index, and at worst heavily skewed in the long direction. And when I see that kind of disparity in the market between reality over here and where people are putting their money over here, to me that is an incredibly clear sign that some retail traders are going to lose their fucking money. And, and it's just what we've seen before many, many times. So that's why I think that this could still potentially be in play for this market. So, right there, I think that at the moment we've got an interesting setup where we could definitely rise up a little bit more, but resistance is going to keep on getting more fierce as we punch toward that $44,000 level, and that's not to say that we can't get up there, but if we do, I think it's going to be incredibly challenging for Bitcoin to get above this region, up above, crucially, $44,000. However, if we are able to pull that off, then, the game is back on. And actually, this is going to be a very, very, very bullish deviation, which would probably mean that we're going to actually probably trace the S&P 500 a little bit and rally on much higher. The S&P 500, interestingly, has been performing incredibly well. If we look at this right here, we've got another 2.5 hours left until this closes, and it is doing so well. It's broken above its all-time high, and it's now been above for 4 days, which is absolutely fantastic. Take a look at this. We broke above it on Friday last week. 1, 2, 3, 4 days we have opened and closed above its previous all-time high. And what's happening now is if we do end up kind of pulling a retracement down, the longer we stay above that level, to me, the more likely this retracement is going to be shallow and only bounce off this level, versus dropping much lower and then coming back up. It still can do that, and I still think that would be the best thing for the S&P 500 to do, but the longer it spends above the resistance level, to me, the more likely it is to find support at a higher level. You just got to think of it in terms of bullish market body language. If the market is giving you a certain bit of body language that points in one particular direction, that can be a hint of what's going to happen next. And if the market to us is hinting, is giving us a tip, giving us a tip off here that the market is in a strong position, well then naturally it doesn't need to pull back as strong either. Naturally the pullbacks are going to be a little bit more shallow because the market looks bullish. So we don't need such deep pullbacks. So That's something which is worth keeping in mind. That said, with the S&P 500 this high, obviously, naturally, again, it's like I said for Bitcoin, nothing goes up or down forever in a straight line. Eventually, we're going to have to start talking about a reversal. And if Bitcoin can't get its head out of its fucking ass by then, by the time the S&P 500 starts reversing, which is an inevitability, it's obviously going to happen. Until, by the time that happens, if Bitcoin is still stuck where it is, I think that's going to be really dangerous for Bitcoin. Because what's happening is Bitcoin is showing us very clearly that it is missing out on all of the enjoyment of the S&P 500. And to me, that's basically saying we've got an incredibly bullish environment from a macro perspective for Bitcoin to rise up. If we do not seize advantage of this bullish environment, then guess what's going to happen when the door starts to turn the other way, and instead we're in a bearish environment, okay? If we're not making good use of a bullish environment, well, that's probably bad news for when we enter a bearish environment. So that's something which I think is very, very important to keep in mind as well. And again, all it is just looking for these triggers, right? I mean, and I've said this before, it doesn't really even warrant, speaking about specifically. I think it's just so obvious. But, when you're at certain market tops like 49K, there's just going to be like perfectly engineered headlines that are ready to be like, hit publish on. And these are going to be the things that you use as reasons for why the market is crashing, right? And in the cases like this, it's grayscale Bitcoin, but it can also be the S&P 500 finally starting to see some turmoil, or the dollar really rallying up, or whatever. It absolutely doesn't matter. These things are highly, highly cyclical in my experience. I've now, by the way, within a few months, I'm going to be, completing my 7th trip around the sun as a trader. It'll be my 7th year as a trader in a few months. So, and that's as a Bitcoin trader, not as a fucking traditional finance trader. So I've been around, I've really lived through a lot in this market. 2 years in the crypto market is probably like 5 or 10 in traditional finance. And so to have sat through 7 years of this now is bloody insane, and also makes me feel like there are certain things I can see from quite far away, and that I can see with a high level of certainty. Doesn't mean I'm right, but it does mean that I can feel a high level of certainty. And that's why when we were down in the trenches of $15,000, $17,000, I was telling you that I'm expecting 30K. I'm even expecting 40K. And it's why once we got up here, I was telling you I'm expecting this 40, high 40, mid 40 range to turn into a low 30 range, and I'm still seeing that happening. And I'm not seeing anything so far that's telling me I'm wrong. To me, the best thing I want to see right now is that we retrace up a little bit more in order to load that, bearish train up with more fuel to take this thing even lower. I hope it happens quickly because I want Bitcoin to recover before the halving. The halving is in April. I want Bitcoin to recover before the halving because that is a beautiful bullish narrative for the Bitcoin community to use to push Bitcoin higher. So if we can get this correction out of the way, it's going to be basically a final obstacle out of the way that we don't have to worry about, that will then make it very hard to make a bullish argument on Bitcoin. I mean, if we've already pulled off the reversal, if we've already backtested a level like 30K, fuck it, if we've even collapsed below 30K by a few $1,000s, and then we've recovered up, and then we've got the single most bullish 4-year event for Bitcoin being the halving, I cannot think of a better, more realistic, grounded, bullish narrative for this market. I cannot think of one. I literally cannot think of a better narrative. It is exactly what I'd be happy to stand behind, and it's exactly why I want to see this dump continue to resolve itself quickly so we can get it out of the way, pick up some more cheap Bitcoin down at 30K, and then send this motherfucker back up to 70K and really start making some very, very exciting gains. Ladies and gents, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I do want to highlight to you guys Deepcoin, which is linked in the description down below. We have just started working with them, and in celebration of that, they are offering you over $100,000 in bonuses, which is absolutely fantastic. In fact, if you just deposit $100 and you make one trade worth 10K, which you can do just in your first trade, you're going to get another $100 for free. They will literally double your trading capital, which is absolutely fantastic. This is another no KYC exchange. BingX is also a no KYC exchange with over 100K in bonuses as well, and access to traditional finance markets. You can trade Tesla, Apple, Forex, you can trade gold, the S&P 500. It is absolutely fantastic. So definitely check them two out. And of course, for me, the main exchange I'm using in the space is Bybit, remains Bybit, and you're going to get up to $30,000 when you start trading using the link to Bybit in the description down below as well. It's worth noting, if you already have an account, you can make a brand new account with the same KYC on Bybit, and you can use this link and you will get these bonuses. You will get the trading package I'm also offering you for free if you are signed up to Bybit. So check all of that stuff out. If you are interested, check out Deepcoin to help support the channel and get over 100K in bonuses, or at least just double your trading capital in your first $100. Super, super cool offer. Well worth taking advantage of. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Cheers.